Welcome to Video 6F Part 1 in our Contemporary Review of Society. In Narrative 6F, we will take a current look at the primary institutions of the arts, music, and communications. In our culture, the institutions in the creative arts, the music industry, and the juggernaut communication enterprises have enormous and influential role in our society, and therefore an incredible impact on our everyday lives, at home, at work, at school, in our communities, in our nation, and across the world. In this primary institutions group, we find and experience some of the largest and most far-reaching organizations in the entire world. Let's take just a moment and outline the principal members in this large primary group of cultural institutions. The arts include the content and concepts that artists seek to project through their various choice of expression. In the world of artists and artisans, we have painting, sculptures, poetry, books, theater, museum displays, any of which may be expressing an explicit or implicit message about our society, religion, politics, beauty, horror, any of which the artist deems valuable to bring to our attention. It's worth noting that the predominant institutions in this group are mainly found in the film, movies, and the Hollywood entertainment industries. The second category of primary institutions in this group includes the content, the concepts, and organizations of our music world and associated entertainment industries. The genre, the musical artists themselves, their bands, their brands, the music schools, the companies which enable concerts, the companies that produce music, and most essentially, the overall messaging in their lyrics and imagery. Altogether, these combine into the primary institution of music in our contemporary society. And third, we have communications. As we noted earlier, the institution of communications is enormous, encompassing all the industries and organizations which create both the content and the technological and mechanical means of manufacturing and distributing information to the population. Information of many types: news, electronics, print, radio, internet, social media, and so on. You can see from the list in green the spectrum of communications to gain a sense of the breadth and depth of this category. In the primary institution of the arts, music, and communications, we've experienced and benefited from incredible contributions to our human culture, in stimulating our hearts and provoking our minds to greater and greater heights of creative endeavor and discovery. To that end, there is no question of the value to humanity over the centuries of this vital institution in contributing to the development of our intellect and appreciation for the creative majesty of our world. Be it paintings or sculpture, symphonies or dance, be it the theater or film, our culture has been moved to a higher, a more refined place in the conscience of humankind than otherwise would have been possible. And this has been accomplished over the centuries, despite the turbulence and violence constantly engulfing human history. The inspiration of the artists, the musicians, the collaborative communicators have helped instill within us a deep respect of the elegance of love and the arts in our lives, and by doing so, they've moved all humanity forward and up. In reviewing this primary institution group during our contemporary times, we find an ambiguous level of consistency and value across the three segments that has been previously the case throughout history. While each segment continues to contribute to our humanistic values in many good ways, we've seen some changes worth discussing. In recent times, we've seen an increasing erosion of the positive contribution of the past, as each of these three segments have been subject to the withering undermining of the elitist liberal progressives who pursue an agenda wrought with self-serving ambition of greed, corruptive anti-values, all to the ultimate detriment of people, especially the children. In the first category, the arts, we largely hold to a positive view of messaging and expression in paintings, sculpture, poetry, books, theater, and museums. In balance, the artistic expression needs to be free, to explore the boundaries of humankind's creative and innovative abilities. However, there are reasonable limits when such creativity is focused upon the intentful harm to a people's race, creed, origin, or culture, then the art is not worthy and is not life-generative, and therefore should not be endorsed by the surrounding culture for display or support. We will now take you through several examples of how some so-called works of art have actually crossed the line of decency in accord with positive values, many times singularly focused in a vicious manner towards people of faith, intentfully destructive to centuries of uplifting human morality, and reflective of ardent supporters to a free, guiltless, hedonistic lifestyle, which scorns God and Judeo-Christian teachings. Let's consider what some of the masters have offered to us when defining art. The aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance, Aristotle. The role of art is not to express the personality, but to overcome it, T.S. Eliot. Just as the farmer provides sustenance for the body, the painter provides sustenance for the soul, Arturo Tello. We ask you, is this art? Do you find this inspirational or emotionally uplifting? Some bigots push this as art, hateful artwork supporting atheist organizations by way of marketing through t-shirts. And on hats, is this contemporary artistic expression worthy of our blind tolerance, despite its hateful, degenerative messaging? How about a photo hung in a New York museum funded by U.S. tax dollars depicting the Christian crucifix with Jesus dying on it placed in a jar of the artist's urine, called Piss on Christ? Is this really artistic expression, or just hateful maligning of God? How about this hateful messaging in an anti-Christian artwork by Dark and English Rose? The negative pairing with rotten fruit, thorns around the cross, wounds on the hand, and a frog on the cross. Then we have the French cartoonist who willfully incites racial and religious hatred towards Jews through speech, writing, pictures, and electronic imagery. Is this uplifting art? Here we have two Argentine artists who have given the famous Barbie and Ken doll toy figures a controversial makeover resembling the Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ crucified on the cross. The so-called artists created a set of box dolls designed to represent various religious figures that was to be on display in an exhibit named Barbie, the Plastic Religion, in Buenos Aires in October 2014. Another artist puts together a grotesque anti-Christian video rife with dark lyrics, savage imagery, wholesale maligning of the sacred figure of Christ and the crucifix, with ants crawling on him, his image being cruelly burned by fire, along with the infusion of dozens of strange macabre figures giving a sense of derangement and depravity. Only fools would call this art, yet it was shown in the National Portrait Gallery at the Smithsonian in December 2010, until rightful pressure forced its removal. In 2011, an artist in the Philippines, Nadeo Cruz, presents an installation of a large red phallus adhered to a crucifix, and a statue of Jesus wearing Mickey Mouse ears. What deep inspiring message and insight do you think he's trying to get across, other than the blatant mockery of Christ? How about making Jesus a star in a Harlequin romance novel? Just another vulgar statement and subtle smear of a religious icon, and another unmistakable example indicative of why bad Christian art is simply anti-Christian. Here's a few more examples of trash promoted as art, all of it with one determinate theme: to put down Christianity, to marginalize it, to denounce it by attacking Christian symbology. We don't see any anti-Islam art, or anti-Hindu art, or anti-Buddhist art, but we do see deliberate, hateful focus on bashing people of Christian faith. Simply put, it's anti-God, it's anti-Christian, and it's rubbish. Simply rubbish. There are other examples of so-called artworks like the pigs painting on Capitol Hill being pushed by political zealots. It's truly sad when moral relativists hijack art to spread their toxic ideology, and democratic leadership in our capital halls of government are unable to distinguish between garbage art, meant to tear down respect for our police officers serving cities across the country, and what would be an uplifting and life-endorsing statement to public safety. In California, we have a street group of gay Satanists putting on a pathetic display of anti-Christian hate, deriding the life of innocent babies, and mocking the Catholic Church for its leadership against abortion. In a vulgar, degenerate display to show their support of Planned Parenthood, the national organization that conducts over 325,000 abortions annually, slaughtering unborn children and post-abortion, cutting up their bodies and selling the parts to other fiendish businesses, while also siphoning over $500 million a year in U.S. taxpayer money. Where's the art here, we would ask? You won't find any, but you will find perverse moral relativity masquerading as theater. And then we have Broadway in 2017, known for its grand theater performances and many, many wonderful plays over the decades, reflecting a deterioration in theatrical standard. We witnessed the cast of Hamilton gather on stage to call out the Vice President of the United States and his family, to lecture him with a crass, rude political grandstanding moment, to self-righteously criticize the new Trump presidency and leadership. In the moment, we see the explicitive nature of elitist liberal progressives forcing their moral relativity onto our culture. The erosion of art continues in New York, with the Trump-like Julius Caesar play in Central Park, where the red-haired president is roundly assassinated by dagger-wielding politicians. A number of sponsors to the theater series pulled their funding, recognizing the harmful social message being pushed by, again, elitist liberal progressives. Pause for a moment, if you would, and consider the social or even moral content of what the moral relativist liberals are attempting with the public play. It's simply a crass political statement. Thankfully, we have reasonably minded intellect making decisions at companies like Delta and the Bank of America, who are capable of recognizing the contemptible nonsense of the liberal left, and they have the class to act against it. And another example of crass political ideology maligning art, we have Green Day bashing, and in their words, the fascist Donald Trump during their AMA performance. And there are other examples of the same type of slanted rhetoric littering the art world of music and entertainment. We would be remiss in not pointing out the fad of body art, cascading across our culture, capturing impressionable youth in its claws, again reflective of the decaying society, and spurred on by moral relativists among us. Many young people are mindlessly falling into the trap, ruining their bodies with grotesque injected ink or metal-infused trinkets on their faces, backs, legs, and arms, permanently scarring themselves, and for what? Overall, the arts have maintained their integrity to artistic and creative values, to inspire and uplift our hearts and minds in America. We do see some erosion in cultural values as depicted in some paintings, sculpture, theater, and museums, although there's a reoccurring attempt for anti-Christian themes leaking in. It's apparent we still see adequate pushback upon the hateful prejudice. More so, it is not pandemic or indicative of any wholesale collapse of values, with the specific intent to mislead and undermine the moral stability of our society at large. However, we reach a different conclusion on the film and movie industry and the entertainment coming out of Hollywood. This concludes Video 6F, Part 1 on the arts. Please continue on to Video 6F, Part 2, where we will discuss Hollywood.